Good morning. Excuse me, both Facebook and Instagram Live. Welcome back to the PT on Ice Daily Show. I'm your host, Mitch Babcock. It's Friday, which means it's Fitness Athlete Friday. My favorite day of the week. Myself, head faculty of the Fitness Athlete Division, both the live course and our two online courses, our Essential Foundations, which is now sold out, and our Advanced Concepts course, which there's a few seats left with myself and the Barbell Physio, aka Zach Long. So happy to be back on the mic. Thank you for all of those that are downloading podcasts. This is episode like 599 or something crazy like that. So that's pretty remarkable. So thanks for listening, especially to longtime viewers that were listening back in the old days of back on Twitter and all the other platforms. We've been on Periscope back in the day. So thanks for everyone who's been sticking with us and watching all those episodes of the PT on Ice Daily Show. It's been a fun ride to watch Jeff kind of start this thing and take it to where it is now. So today, Fitness Athlete Friday, what are we talking about? The barbell. We're talking about the barbell, of why it's the king of strength and why it's the clinician's best friend, right? Or where it should be the clinician's best friend. So if you haven't yet, what you need to do is go back and watch episode 595. That's Jeff's episode of If Not Now, When, right? Where we're talking about 2020 in the current age that we're at as a profession and how we need to continue rebranding ourselves in the modern age of physical therapy and what the consumers need and what they require from us as a psychologically informed practitioner, right? And part of that that was mentioned with Jeff's podcast, which I loved, and Alan and I both listened to it twice, was like, look, stop putting it off. Like, the clinic needs a barbell and it needs a squat rack. Like, what are we talking about anymore? Like, we used to kind of dance around it and, say, yeah, like, as long as you got some strength equipment in there, it's good. No, like, the time is now for clinics all over the country that if you're going to do outpatient rehab, that you need ways of progressively overloading and strength training your individuals. They need it. They need more fitness. They need more strength. And we can't run from that evidence any longer. It's overwhelming, right? So we need it. We need resources and tools and strength training devices to be able to help people get to that position, right? The barbell is the number one. We need a barbell. But if you don't currently have a barbell in your clinic, you may be struggling to maybe be comfortable with using it or understanding its versatility or why it's so important, right? And I want to try to fill some of those gaps today a little bit to try to help you better understand its versatility and hopefully help get one in your clinic. But I must say, my greatest fear, one of my biggest fears, is we go around and we teach clinicians and work with clinic groups over the country, is that we get folks excited about the barbell. We get them excited around strength training. And the clinic goes out, they buy a barbell because everybody else is doing it, but then it just sits in the corner and collects dust. And I have nightmares of all these beautiful brand new Rogue fitness bars that are just stacked in the corner of the clinic and not been used in months because the clinicians aren't comfortable using them. They aren't comfortable pulling them out and actually loading their patients with that, right? So I want to help kind of give you some ways and reasons why it's the most beautiful tool that you have as a clinician to help get people stronger, right? And the most basic one that people think of is like barbells are just for like squatting and deadlifting. And while those are our main point, like those are your main movements of functional movement and moving a heavy load a large distance, they're certainly not the only movements. There are infinite amount of creations that you can get creative with the barbell usage, right? So main points, I want to talk about three of them. One is obviously the why the barbell is the king, progressive overload, right? Progressive overload makes the barbell, bar none, the best piece of strength training equipment that you have, both in the rehab sector and in the strength conditioning sector, right? The reason the barbell has stood the test of time is because we can continually, progressively overload that almost at infinite capacities, right? Right? There's people squatting 1,000, 1,200 pounds now. Like, we didn't think that the human being, that the potential of the human would be able to move that much load, but the barbell still seems to be the tool to allow to push those variables and to redefine human potential, right? And that's because we can start at such basic levels of 45 or even 35 pounds if you get a women's bar. And there's even training bars that are 10 or 15 pounds, right? So you can literally start at the most basic level and incrementally progress someone as small or as large of jumps as you want to make through their training cycle, literally until the end of their time, right? They will never run out of ways to train barbell progressive overload. There's always more weight that you can put on that bar for them, and you're never going to cap, you're never going to hit a ceiling. Now, dumbbells and kettlebells are great, and I'm certainly not saying don't have kettlebells, and I'm certainly not saying that kettlebells aren't a fantastic strengthening tool, and you can get a lot done with kettlebells. But at some point, you have to just keep investing more and more money on another kettlebell, a heavier kettlebell, a heavier kettlebell, a heavier kettlebell. And when people can deadlift 500 pounds, do you have kettlebells that go up that high? Are you gonna buy? Do they make a 500-pound kettlebell, right? So there's a ceiling on your kettlebell strengthening in the progressive overload that you can continue to do with some of them other tools. There is no ceiling on your barbell. You can literally start at the lowest point and progressively overload them, small or as big of jumps as they continue to make, in a multitude of different movement patterns, right? The biggest one's the squat and the deadlift. As clinicians, we have to be rock solid on coaching and treating and getting folks moving on the squat and the deadlift, right? There's a number of other movements, and especially in our CrossFit realm, and we're doing all sorts of stuff with the barbell, and thrusters and cleans and snatches and all sorts of press variations, and those are great. But if you can't train someone to move a bar, to put a heavy load on their back, to stabilize and compress the spine and be able to move your hip crease below your knee, and if you can't set them up in a flat, neutral spine position and have them pick up a heavy load off the ground, we're missing key components of their functionality, right? So you've got to have those tools, right, and the know-how, the knowledge to be able to treat someone and to be able to coach them up through the squat and the deadlift. Right? We have a number of resources to help clinicians do that. This is not the time and place, but the barbell is your number one starting point for that. Right? Here's a bar. I want you to put it on your shoulders. I want you to get your belly tight, and I want you to sit straight down until your hip crease is below your knee, and then stand straight up. Excellent job. Now we're going to do that again under heavier loads until form starts to degrade a little bit, and then I'm going to force you into better positions under that load. And we're going to continue to do that and do that and do that for weeks and weeks and weeks, and watch you get stronger with that. Here's a heavy bar on the ground. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to walk up to it, put your shins up to the bar, keep your back flat, hinge over at the waist, get tight in the shoulders, and stand up with that bar, right? We're teaching the deadlift at that point. Now we're going to continue progress and progress and progress in the same way that we do the squat, right? Now on top of that, there are infinite ways to continue to strengthen the shoulders, right? With our press patterns, right? It's both single arm and double arm press patterns. With the barbell, we're talking about our strict press, our push press, where we get to use a little bit more lower extremity engagement, where we get to transfer force from the hips through the midline up into the shoulders, where we can start moving heavier loads overhead. And then eventually for our more Olympic-based athletes, the jerk, the split jerk, and the push jerk, where they can move even heavier loads overhead. We're seeing athletes now at the Olympic caliber being able to jerk 500 pounds over their head. I mean, like, there was a time not too long ago that where picking 500 pounds off the floor was an incredible strength feat. Now more and more people that can deadlift 500 pounds, and more folks that are coming out that can put that over their head. It's just remarkable of what the barbell has been able to do from a progressive overload and versatility standpoint, right? Versatility, that's our second point. Yeah, these big foundational movements, the squat, the deadlift, those are great, but they're not the only things that barbell is good for in your clinic, right? If you're not familiar with landmine variations with the barbell, boy, head on over to the Barbell Physio's website, right? Our dude Zach Long, and type in landmine, and I'm sure he's got 1,800 articles around the landmine of different ways that you can go. Landmine presses, kneeling landmine press, landmine RDLs, landmine Russian twists for the midline rotational strength, right? Landmine squats, holding it, landmine deadlifts. There's an infinite number of ways that you can simply stick that barbell into the corner of your clinic, right? Throw load on one end of that, and kind of using that barbell in more of that pivot kind of rotational pattern to be able to do all these other movements with that, right? And so now I can do some unilateral loading. I can do some single arm, single leg variations with that barbell, right? I can do some asymmetrical loading. I can do some rotational based stuff. And I can also do some pressing patterns in an arm slot angle, more like scaption, and kind of out here at this 45-degree angle, as opposed to our overhead pressing if our shoulders are painful to press overhead, right? So our variations when it comes to landmine pressing really start to expand the arsenal even further, right? What are some of my favorites with the barbell? Well, outside of the squat and deadlift, which I've harped on enough this morning, I love a good RDL, right? A Romanian deadlift. And you can do, there are some folks that do like a stiff-legged RDL or just a traditional RDL where you have like a slight bend in the knees. But I love the RDL for a couple reasons. One, when I'm trying to teach a hinge pattern, and we've started with that PVC on the back, and we've talked about this before, where we start to make the hinge pattern less painful and less sensitized for that individual. Then I put a bar in their hands, and they're standing right upright with it, and I start to train the RDL, where we just slide it down the thighs to the top of the knee or slightly past the knee and stand up. It starts to kind of take that hinge pattern into a loaded hinge pattern before we're ever doing full deadlifts from the ground, but does a lot to strengthen the back, teach the athlete how to maintain a neutral lumbar spine as they're hinging, right? And I can give them contact cues or feedback or whatever I need to do to get them in that right position, but also strength the posterior chain. Man, get the hamstrings engaged, get them active a little bit, and get the back strong. And the RDL is a really good way to do that. That once they're strong and comfortable in that hip hinge pattern, I take that RDL into a barbell good morning. So now the bar's on the shoulders and we're doing that same hinge pattern, but the importance on the spine staying neutral is even more so. And now we're focusing more on low back strengthening than we are hamstring strengthening. Both are on board still, but we've prefaced the back a little bit more based on the bar's positioning. Now, instead of being out in front of me, it's loaded on my shoulder and I'm doing a barbell good morning. So those are two of my favorites when I'm talking about back pain or strengthening the spine or working on that hip hinge pattern. The RDL, after the PVC hip hinge, we do the RDL and we do the barbell good morning. We hammer those two components to help get athletes strong in those hip hinge patterns, right? The last piece that the barbell really serves a great purpose for, especially in our clinics, is helping to prove and create that culture of strength training, right? Saying, hey, no matter who you are, no matter how you start, where you come from, where you're at when you start with us, we're going to get you stronger. That's what we do here. When you discharge our care, when you leave our clinic after how many weeks working together, you're going to be stronger than the day you started. And no piece of equipment sends that message better than the barbell. When it's sitting there on the floor and you've got a set of 10s on it and says, I don't care. I don't care that you're scared of it. We're going to teach some foundational movements and we're going to get comfortable with this. And after the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, you're going to be asking, how much can I deadlift? Can I do more? That seemed pretty easy. Can you put some more weight on there for me? Where they came in thinking, I've never deadlifted before and the barbell isn't something for me, and they discharge your care wondering how much more they can lift and why you don't have any more weights for them, right? That should be the biggest problem they have. They should literally cap out of your clinic because you have loaded them to the point where you don't have any more bumper plates anymore. The bar could hold more. I just got to order some more, right? And when you get to that point, you develop this culture of strength training in your clinic. When people come in and you say, I know what's going on. I know it's painful right now, but we've got ways to kind of reduce, change, modify movements and get you stronger. And at the end of the day, you're going to leave our clinic and leave our care as a stronger, more resilient individual than you started. The barbell sends that message very clearly, right? Not one that's dusty and standing up in the corner, not a squat rack that doesn't get used and used as a pulley station or a TheraBand station. A squat rack that's your most utilized piece of equipment where people are fighting over it. Where you're like, hey, I got my 9 o'clock that needs to be squatting and I got my 8:30 that's still pressing on that rack, right? Like that's how well utilized your squat rack and your barbell needs to be in the clinic. And if you're not yet appreciating all the different ways that the bar is going to be used, the barbell is going to be used, not just squatting and deadlifting. Yeah, those are your top tier ones, but all the other patterns and movements at which you can do that, I highly encourage you to start finding more resources, reading more articles, taking a look at that Zach's free ebook where we talked about the strength equipment that the clinics needs, things of that nature that will help you wrap your head around how I need to be utilizing this tool to help get athletes and patients stronger in the clinic. And if you need help, if you need hands-on help, you need to come find us at a live course. Because literally for 2 straight days, we're going to have a barbell in your hands. And by the end of the weekend, we're going to force that you're comfortable of moving that barbell, squatting, deadlifting, pressing, jerking, Olympic lifts, the whole 9 yards, right? So come see us at a live course if you're still not comfortable with barbells, because if I see them dusty in the clinic, part of my soul is going to die every time I see a dusty barbell in the clinic. So tag us. If your barbell is in motion today, if you're in the clinic and that thing is getting some use, take a picture. Take a picture and tag Ice Physio, hashtag PT on Ice, or hashtag Ice Trained, and let us know that you're using that bar and how you're using that barbell in your clinic today. And some other clinicians can follow along in that thread as it develops this weekend and get some good ideas to start implementing in their clinic as well. So the barbell, it's still the king of strength training, and it's still your best friend, and you need to be comfortable moving it and utilizing it in the clinic. So that's it for me this morning. That was right at 15 minutes. Thank you guys for tuning in live, Instagram, Facebook, podcast, downloads. Thanks so much for listening. It's the weekend after a crazy holiday, couple of weeks of holidays. I don't even know what day it is anymore. They tell me it's Friday. Enjoy the weekend. Excited to get back on schedule next Monday with some goals and visions of 2020. The work has already started, so hopefully you guys have listed some things for your business or professionally, personally that you want to knock out, and then hope to see you guys out on the road in our live course or on my online courses, Ice Physio. So thanks for listening. We'll see you guys next time at the PT on Ice Daily Show. Take care. Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.